Then we will get started with the Development Review Board for Burlington for June 7th. And I will note for those who are attending that we take up items in the order they are on the agenda. And when we call each item, we ask that people who are going to participate either as applicants or the public to indicate, raise their hand, and Scott will admit them to participate in the meeting. And at that point, we ask for them to provide mailing addresses for follow-up notices. And communications, I think everything is online.
Yeah.
Minutes, I actually did not note that whether our minutes or not, but I will take a look. Maybe everybody else can take a look too if there are minutes posted.
Yeah, the draft minutes are always posted with the meeting they're associated with.
Okay. Now, there's one item that was taken off the agenda. Is that right? Manhattan Drive?
Yes, that's correct. Manhattan Drive has altered their application, so it now can be reviewed administratively.
So if anybody's here for 425 Manhattan Drive, it won't be happening. Okay. Then we will get right into the consent agenda. We have 58 Hyde Street is the applicant here.
I don't see the applicant here yet, Brad. We do have the applicants here for 11 Flynn Ave, so maybe you want to skip to that and come back to Hyde Street.
We will go to 11 Flynn Ave then. Is applicant here?
Yep.
Is that
Brad,
John Adams?
I'm recused on this item.
Okay, that was Jeff. And so I see two people, John Adams and Sophie Sauve. Is that right?
Yep.
Yep.
And this is on the consent agenda, which means the city staff is recommending it for approval. And I would assume you were probably okay with that recommendation?
Yes,
Yes,
Sure.
okay,
we're good with that.
okay. Does anybody on the board object to treating this as consent? No. Is anybody in the public here for this, Scott?
I don't think so. I just see applicants. If you'd like to speak on this item, raise your hand. All right, nobody.
Okay. Does somebody want to make a motion on 11 Flynn Avenue?
Make a motion, Brad.
Okay, thanks, Brooks.
Yeah, on ZP 22-251 11 Flynn Avenue, I move that we approve the application and adopt staff findings and recommendations.
Second on that? I see Kayla, thank you. Any discussion? All approved? Okay, unanimous. Minus Jeff, who was recused.
Yep.
Okay, so that is approved.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Go forth and park.
Thank you.
Okay. So, Hyde Street is not here. We'll
No, not yet. Just keep going.
move on to the public hearing. First item we have is 69 Orchard Terrace. Change of use of existing residence to short-term rental. And I see the applicant is here. Is anybody else here to speak on that application?
That's Brandon Salimi, Scott.
Yeah, I see two Salimis and both can speak.
I assume
Okay.
they're both applicants.
Yep. If anyone in the audience wants to speak to this item, 69 Orchard Terrace, raise your hand and
Yep.
we can enable you to speak.
Yes, this is Bijan Salimi. Can you hear me?
Yep. So-
Okay, my son
I-
is, yeah, go ahead.
So I was just going to say, it looks like there's only two people here who are going to speak on this, and it looks like you're both part of the applicant, Brandon
Yep.
and Bijan.
That's correct. That's
So I
correct.
would like to swear both of you in, if you would swear to tell the truth and whole truth under pain and penalty of perjury.
Yes,
I do.
I do.
Okay, so I think the city has recommended approval on this. And there is, I guess, some question about how the parking would work on this one.
Yes. Yeah, Brandon, you want to comment that because I don't see Brandon. That's why I can't tell whether he's going or I'm going. Sorry about that. Well, I have been in so many Zooms, but this one is a little different. Brandon, can you hear us?
I don't know if you guys hear me. I have my hand raised.
Yeah, we can hear you, Brandon.
Oh.
You can go ahead. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Yeah, no, I'd spoken with Mary about this and good to put a face with the name here. But I recently just graduated from an MBA program in upstate New York, and I'm moving back to Burlington, Vermont to be my primary residence. And I travel for work as I work in consulting for a large biotech company. So when I'm out of the house, I was hoping to not only be able to utilize it for a short-term rental with the 2 parking spaces and the 2 bedrooms that Mary and I discussed, but when I am there as well, being able to rent out the other bedroom as well via short-term rental. So that is the intent behind it, and just looking to clarify that with you all.
And how does the parking work?
It is it has 2 spaces for a vehicle in the driveway. It is a detached garage as well. But I think Mary had mentioned that you're not able to utilize the garage, even if it is remote operated. So there's 2 full parking spaces, which, is why that 2-bedroom idea is what we kind of landed on. Are you guys on the same page with that?
And the comment is that I believe that you're going to have somebody move cars.
Yep, I think there was an attendant that would be there. So we installed basically security throughout the security cameras around the perimeter, and have what's it called? One of those ring operated doorbells, so we can kind of not only interface with who's ever staying there, but also kind of communicate with them, verbally through that.
Sorry, could you say that again?
Excuse me about that. Verbally, so we know who's there is what I'm kind of getting at, and we know who's in the parking lot, so we know who to kind of interface with. But yeah, that's not an issue from my understanding in terms of how that would be addressed.
Well, you have to move a car. That's how that has to be addressed, I think.
Yeah, so in the event that there was a car parked there, it would, from my perspective, if I wasn't there, involve getting in contact with the guest to have it be moved so the guest could leave. But if I was there, then I would be in charge of that.
Yes, if I can just add to what Brandon just said, certainly we can tell them, as you know, there's so many public parking, spots in that area that there's absolutely no problem telling the guest that they need to have only 2 cars on the driveway, and if they have 3 cars or whatever, please park it in these areas, designated areas. We can certainly provide actually a written, if you want to call it, statement to that effect. So we can put it as a part of the basically short-term rental arrangements. We can certainly do that.
It would also,
Yeah, I'm sorry. One question is, what is the reason that the garage is not permitted or is not appropriate for the guests to go into the garage? The garage is in good shape and everything. It's a 1-car garage.
We allocate it towards the single family residence. Scott, that's correct, right?
Yes, that is correct. In the staff
Sorry, Mary.
report, we acknowledge there are 3 parking spaces, but they're stacked. The first one is in the garage. There would be a limit here on a 1-room rental because 2 parking spaces are dedicated to the single family home and 1 to a room rented. If either one of these gentlemen are away and they're still claiming this as they're still making this their primary residence, they would have the potential of renting their bedroom. So it's a 1-bedroom bed and breakfast unless they're traveling, and then they could rent a second, but there's adequate parking as long as they can jockey cars.
Yeah.
and it would also be the case if you were away and the other unit was being occupied and the cars were stacked, that I guess the two sets of tenants would have to get in touch with one another.
Yes. Yeah, that would be a consent that would be communicated with the prospective guest in advance of that, just to make them aware. And just to give you guys context, if you can't visualize what this driveway looks like, I believe it was an attachment in one of the files that was kind of added to the agenda here, just if you want to pull that up to view.
We do have a copy of the plan.
Yes.
Sorry, what was that?
We have a copy of the plan.
Excellent.
I have a question just with the way that we're kind of talking about this in a little bit of
Yeah.
complexity. Is your intention to rent the 2 bedrooms separately when you're away, or would that be a one rental to one?
Yeah, ideally it would be under one, as in like the same person or same family coming would be able to, utilize those 2 bedrooms, or in the event that there's one place, just the 1 bedroom, for example. I think that's why it would be a little bit too confusing. And I hadn't factored that in terms of needing 2 different people to communicate. So the intent would be to have it under the same, relationship of whoever is staying there.
Jeff, do you want to make a comment?
Yeah, Brandon, this is not your fault. We're dealing with an ordinance that does not have an Airbnb provision in it. So we're stuck with trying to approve these as bed and breakfasts. And
Yeah, of course.
unfortunately, the ordinance says very specifically that you need to provide a written guarantee ensuring that an attendant will always be present when the lot is in operation. That's the zoning ordinance requirement for stacked parking for a bed and breakfast.
Okay.
And I think what I'm hearing is that while it may be a reasonable plan as to how you're going to coordinate it, you aren't able to provide a written guarantee that there will always physically be an attendant present who is designated to move cars when the lot is in operation.
I would agree with that in the sense that they wouldn't be living in the residence if I was removed, but I would have a dedicated person that could be there within, a 10 to 15 minute time frame, if that was a requirement, basically. And again, I'm not sure how to navigate that just because I wasn't too privy to that ordinance, but I'm happy to accommodate that as needed.
And who would that be?
So if I was gone, it would be either my Bijan, who lives within 15 minutes of the property, or I would find someone one of my kind of close friends and contacts in the area that would be able to accommodate prior to allowing someone to stay there, just to make sure that they'd be able to accommodate that.
I'm sorry, is there a time limit for movement of the cars? Meaning it has to be done within, because these are interesting points that everybody's bringing up, which is very interesting. Be like within 15 minutes? Is there a time limit, or within 30 minutes? Or we understand it needs to be done, but I'm just not clear the time limit associated with it. Because
Well,
you
the
mentioned it
ordinance
has to
says somebody living on the premises is really how the ordinance is written. So
Right.
all of this is sort of going beyond what the ordinance says.
Okay.
I think the concept is a valet, to be honest. It's stacked or valet parking is described the same way. So they're physically imagining, the ordinance says will always be present. So I take that as physically present to be able to move the car.
I mean, if it's a requirement, obviously, then we have to go by the ordinance. I mean, we can't argue with that. I mean, that's as simple as that. I mean, that's what the law says. That's what the law is going to be.
Yeah.
So that's clear to us. We're trying to understand the mechanics of it. It's like a meter, right? You're not there, 15 minutes pass by, you're gonna get a ticket. Okay, we understand that.
Yeah, I think the challenge is that we're putting uses into physical spaces that they may not have been intended or designed for. And unfortunately, we're working with an ordinance that has not been updated to address appropriately all the issues that can come up in these kinds of short-term rentals. So I've been pretty strict in the past in applying this in stacked parking situations, and it's what we have to work with. So if you want something different, I'd encourage you to talk to your city councilor.
Yeah, of course. And just one thing if you don't mind me adding here, is it like potentially feasible to make it a requirement that if there are 2 vehicles there, that they have to be from the same family? I'm just wondering what that looks like.
That would definitely be helpful.
I mean, again, that was the intent initially. It was never the 2 separate. It was more so if they had a family or kids, something like that, traveling. that they could stay there. But if that is a requirement, then I'm happy to make sure that because is fulfilled essentially, because you are able to approve guests that are staying there. So I could make it so it's not anyone could book freely, essentially, that it would have to go through me approving it, obviously ahead of time. Does that make sense?
I think that would be a helpful condition.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, want to see if that is feasible though.
We can discuss that during deliberative. Caitlin, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I just have one more question, more for Mary. Can you remind me why the use count, it's both a single family and a bed and breakfast, and why it's not just a bed and breakfast when it comes to the parking requirements?
Bed and breakfast is associated with a single family home.
So it's always both?
It's
If you look
owner
at the parking
occupied.
standard, Caitlin, it actually says, what is it, one per bedroom, but it also says in addition.
In addition
single
to.
family.
Got it.
Okay, well, I think if the applicant is comfortable with that, that would be a helpful condition that we can discuss during deliberative.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Any other comments from the board? Or comments from the applicant? Okay, we will probably deliberate at the end of the meeting today. And at that, I will close the public hearing. Thank you.
So Brad, we have the applicant for 58 Hyde Street.
Okay, well, exciting. Let's go to 58 Hyde Street.
Okay.
And that applicant is that Mac?
Is Mac.
Mac Atkins. Okay, so this is on the consent agenda. Mac, have you seen the staff report?
Yes.
And are you okay with those conditions?
It's in regards to signing the agreement that someone will always be present.
Yeah.
Yes, because we live full time in the bottom residence.
Okay. Is there anybody on the board who objects to treating this as consent? Anybody in the public, Scott?
I just see applicants. If any of you
Okay.
want to speak on this item, raise your hand. All right, nobody.
Okay, how about a motion on 58 Hyde Street? Leo,
I'm sorry to do this, but I feel
go ahead, Leo.
I feel given the other applications and various things, I think it could be good to discuss this in our deliberative session along with other. Yes, I don't think that this should be consent right now.
But if it met, like, has all the
Mac, this is just the process that if he wants it off consent, it's off consent. So we will discuss this. So Mac, I have to swear you in. Do you swear to tell the truth and whole truth on the pain and penalty of perjury?
Yes.
Okay, so I think what Leo is talking about is how the parking arrangement works. Is that right, Leo?
I am, and I think that I am not necessarily in favor or opposed. I think, though, that we have several applications that have similar issues, and I think it would be worth it to include all of them in our discussion as to give us a chance to be most consistent.
I guess now that we're off of consent, I guess I've got a clarifying question either for staff or for the applicant. The staff write-up suggests that there's space for stacked parking, but then also says it's tandem parking. And I guess the way I read the ordinance is only stacked parking needs an attendant.
Correct.
Tandem parking does not need an attendant. So what is this plan proposing?
So in this case, Jeff, So this is a little bit different twist than what we were just talking about. This is actually a case of dealing with nonconformity and preservation of that nonconformity. In this case, the nonconformity is actually dropping. The long story short, I suppose we can get into the long story if need be, but the long story short is we only recognize two spaces, tandem, one in front of the other in this instance, right? And you're right, we only get into attendance when we have stacks, so 3 or more. In this case, between the tandem arrangement and the degree of parking nonconformity decreasing, I recommended a green light on that.
Because the amount of nonconformity was less.
Yes.
But the use was changing. So
Use was changing, which triggered the
nonconformity,
reduction in parking requirement, which reduced the nonconformity.
right? But I guess part of my concern about the stacked parking is you've got, even if you had a nonconformity of 4 spaces, you're now introducing a short-term rental component where the parties are not sort of directly related, and one has responsibility for ensuring the parking for the other.
If it was a nonconformity of 4 spaces, that would translate to they have no on-site parking. And I'd make the same recommendation if they were switching one of the units to a B&B with the reduction in required parking going from 4 to 3.
Okay. So it is going to be stacked 3 in a row, but your view is that that's a reduction in nonconformity, so you're not worried about the
Wait,
attendant.
3 in a
I'm
row.
not entertained the stacked at all. I didn't go there at all. I left it with tandem because that's all we recognize right now.
Yeah, my driveway currently can hold 2 cars on both sides.
So they're tandem. They're two sets of cars by
Yes.
each other.
So the people who lived upstairs, they could fit 2 cars on the left side. My girlfriend and I can fit both of our cars as well. I don't have a problem reducing the other side to 1 car. It's only going to be a bedroom, so it would only allow up to 2 people.
All right, that's helpful for understanding the context.
Mac, you're saying you can get side by side down here where it's wider?
Well, no, it's on the right actually, because that's all stone. So that whole space or close to it, there's 2 window wells that the stone goes up to, but the cars fit side by side. So up to 4 car suggested.
But aren't we just have to go by what the geometry says, Scott, right, don't we?
Yeah, I mean, if the driveway is
So
in fact wider than this site plan shows, we need to.
That's
update the
an
site plan to
old,
show
that's,
that.
yeah. I think that's an old drawing. The parking doesn't extend beyond the back. Yeah.
Okay, this is the most recent approved site plan, which is why I showed it. If it's different, then we should clean that up as part of this application. And if in fact you can get 2 pairs of tandem, I think that's better for your application than just a single pair of tandem.
Yeah, that's the latter is what it is now, and my apologies for missing that left part. So it would not be stacked.
I'll say that the current Google Maps photo has essentially space for 4 total cars. There's no extension in the back, but there are 2 side-by-side cars.
Okay, so in this case, then there is no parking nonconformity if they have 2 pairs of tandem.
Well, they don't have approved 2-grid tandem.
They don't have approved yet, but it sounds like they would have to include that change
Yeah.
in site plan with this.
Does it make sense to table this and have them come back with a actual site plan that's accurate?
Well,
Accuracy is good.
I don't have a problem with only 1 car, because again, there's only up to 2 people allowed there, so 2 cars are unneeded. So delaying it just to add another car. It fits 4 cars right now. I have no problem reducing that.
I think the problem is you're still saying that the 3 cars would be tandem. So you'd have 2 on one side and a third next to it, not 3 in a row.
Yeah,
To do that, you need to amend this site plan so that you're showing the actual parking area for tandem parking, because this dimension wouldn't allow for tandem parking.
Okay.
So is that something that, Mac, that you can do is get this corrected and then bring it back to staff?
Okay.
And we can put this on to another meeting, Scott?
Yeah, we're looking at July at this point. You know, if everything works out and this is a pro forma review on the 5th, we could probably do July 5th. If you think it's going to be more involved, we should do the second meeting in July.
Well, if he's
Which
coming
would
back,
be what, the 19th?
yeah. Mac, do you have a preference between the 5th and 19th of July?
I'd prefer the 5th.
Why don't we shoot for that, Scott? Do we need a
Okay.
motion on that to?
Yeah, you do.
Everyone make a motion to,
So moved.
okay. Was that Jeff?
Yeah.
And second,
I'll second.
Caitlin? All in favor? I can't see everybody, so it's a yes for
unanimous.
everybody. Yeah, okay, good. So, Mac, we will see you on the 5th of July.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Okay. So now, continuing on the B&B quest. We are on 13 Lakeview Terrace. And
Yep, we have the applicant here. I'll let him speak.
this is John McGuire.
Yep.
John, is anybody else here to speak on this besides? No. So John, can you hear me?
Yeah, what am I on? John McGuire.
Yep, we're about to start your review of your application. Would you swear in that you are, you would say the whole truth and nothing but the truth on the pain and penalty of perjury?
Shit. I'll be as honest as zoning is. How's that?
That's not actually an answer.
Yeah, it is. Anyways, yeah, sure.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, you heard that, right?
is that a yes or a no?
Yes, sure.
He said yes.
Okay.
Okay, so what is it that you would like to say, John McGuire?
I don't want to say anything. I mean, you guys have a problem with parking. But I guess my whole staff thing is affirmative, so I guess I don't have anything to say.
Okay. There is a requirement for attendant parking again here. Are you okay with that?
Where?
Huh?
Like, I heard everything was affirmative.
With that requirement that you have an attendant available, I believe that's the case. Am I remembering from the staff report?
So there's two units there. There's a duplex. There's a duplex before I bought it. Zoning maybe put in one space when I renovated it in 2006. It's a bloody terrible experience, Mary O'Neill. And there's still 2 spots there. No one has a problem with parking. I live there on the 2nd floor. 1st floor is short term. 2nd floor, I rent short term whenever I can. I have a bunch of properties around. I'm a developer. I don't do any development in Burlington. When Mary O'Neill leaves, I will start to develop in Burlington.
Mr. McGuire, can you keep your comments to stuff pertinent to the application and not disparage your staff, please?
No, I'm going to tell you the truth right now. You wanted me to tell you the truth. I said, yes, you got the truth.
Okay, let's talk about your application.
Shoot.
So tell me how you're arranging parking for this request.
Well, I got 2 parking spaces there. I give 1 to each unit. No one has a problem.
And you live on site?
I do. Unless I got a rental there, and then I'll go out to one of my like 6 other places.
How many days are you on site?
I don't know. I don't count.
What is your primary residence for tax purposes?
Burlington, Vermont, 13 Lakeview Terrace, apartment 2.
I think I had misread it. Mary, am I correct that this is not recommending a attended parking? Am I right about that?
This one's mine, Brad, and that's correct.
Okay.
We're sticking with, just like the last one, it had the existing non-compliant parking.
Right.
They need 4 now under the duplex. They, with the current proposal, they either need 3, which is a decrease in non-conformity, or 4 when the applicant is present in his unit. So it breaks even with the non-conformity.
Okay. We're good with that. We've got this not increasing non-conformity.
Right.
But Ryan, is that stacked? The site plans show a pretty narrow driveway. So are the cars side by side or are they stacked?
There's 2
Stacked.
spaces tandem.
And it's one in front of the other.
Yeah, and that's it.
That's it.
Okay.
So that's the aerial right there. Driveway, one behind the other.
There is an actual site plan too, Scott, if you want to.
Plans.
Yeah, that's one.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going with the not increasing non-conformity, but it still is. Brian, isn't it still for a bed and breakfast if the owner's not on site? We'll deal with the parking issue. Is that right, Brian?
I can't understand. There's some background noise going on, I think.
Right, it is muted, John. It's coming from his,
Okay, what was that, Brad?
When this is a B&B and the owner is not on site, that's when we have to deal with the idea of 2 cars stacked in front of each other and need an attendant. Is that right?
Well, we didn't get into the intended part in this discussion. I was sticking with the non-conformity, so that would, the idea, yes, the tenant would be ideal.
So both you and Scott are looking at the idea that decreasing the amount of non-conformity is a bonus and not worried about the attendant parking though in that instance. Is that right?
yes. Yeah, the attendant comes into play when we're doing stacked. And here we're not talking stacked. We have one in front of the other for tandem. And, you know, I guess it's a little bit wonky, but, you know, parking nonconformity either remains unchanged or decreases.
Okay.
Depending on the use of the B&B.
Okay. Well, sounds like another one we can discuss during deliberative. Any other questions from the board? Any other comments from the applicant pertinent to the application? Sounds like no. Okay, we will close the application and we will probably deliberate at the end of the meeting today. Next item is 84 Chase Street.
All right, the applicant here, I'm getting Zoom's telling me she has an older version of Zoom, so give me a moment.
This is Colleen, Scott.
Yeah.
Are we going back to, are we skipping 83 Central?
Did I? Oh, no,
84
Chase
Chase.
Street is next.
Yep.
After 13 Lakeview Terrace, 84 Chase Street.
Documents weren't in the same order. That's what I was looking at.
All right, so I had to bump the applicant up to panelist because of an older version of Zoom. So here she is.
Okay. So, Colleen, and I think that's the only person speaking on this application. I would swear you in. Do you tell the plaintiff, tell the truth and whole truth on the pain and penalty of perjury? This is where you say yes.
Colleen, you're muted.
Can you unmute her, Scott?
I can ask her to unmute.
There you are.
there.
Okay.
So that was a yes, Colleen?
Okay. Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So this was recommended for approval by the staff. And I don't know if you have any comments you want to make on this?
Me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I talked to Mary earlier today and she said I might have to explain some parking. And we've been talking about that, so I drew a picture.
So I think what they're saying, this is another one of those instances where for a bed and breakfast, there has to be somebody on site to help move the cars. And that was something that you were agreeing to?
Yeah, well, can you see this?
I think we have a copy of the site plan in the application.
Yeah.
I have four spots and usually, whoops, there we go. So I have 4 spots and the right is for the left. The left parking, 2 spots are for the lower space that gets rented out. So for the most part, I'm going to be here. Otherwise, they'd have their designated spot. And I can't imagine renting for more than like 2 people upstairs and 2 people downstairs because it's just 1 bedroom upstairs, 1 bedroom downstairs. So they can, I think, manage their own parking. Besides that, we have parking on the street. But
Mary, is this your project?
It is, Jeff.
sorry, Mary.
So I'm still trying to understand. It is recommended for an attendant, but it seems like this is tandem, not stacked parking.
That's correct. I mean, among the plethora of divergent plans we've seen for bed and breakfast, we frequently have adequate parking, but this concern about having different renters there begs the question, or how are people going to get into designated places? So, you know, this is tandem parking, yes, and the issue would be, you know, 2 parking spaces for the homeowner and then 2 for the 2 bedrooms. Depending upon how they park, one might pin in another car. So it is not stacked that demands attendant, but we have to be cognizant that there's the potential that if these are different people, one might pin another car in there. So it doesn't allow free movement. There is adequate parking there, but it's the management that becomes the question.
Not
I
required
thought
by the,
Colleen said that there's 1 bedroom in each of the 2 units. Is that incorrect? Is there 2 bedrooms in one and 1 in the other?
No, there's just 1 bedroom on each floor.
I mean, to me, that kind of mitigates the issue, because I think the way the staff report is, if there's only 1 bedroom, I don't see how this one is worse than some of the other ones that we're not recommending an attendant for.
Yeah. How many cars do you have, Colleen?
1.
So you've got 2 bedrooms that you're renting out basically, and you live there.
No, actually, if I were to rent both the, you know, it's really just 1 place that I'm looking to rent. and that is 1 bedroom. I live in the loft upstairs.
So you're really just looking to rent out a 1-bedroom downstairs.
Right. If I were to rent my place out, it would be like if I haven't even thought about it, but I just wanted to get the permit just in case, because I might want to, they have traveling nurses, and I might want to go to Florida where my family is to say hello in the wintertime. So that is either short-term or bed and breakfast. But this was just for Airbnb or B&B.
Well, the application is for 2 bedrooms.
Yeah, so then it would be my loft, and then it would be the bedroom on the bottom floor.
Colleen, I think what you're explaining is that you want the application to be for both in case you want to rent out your own space, but
yes.
Not the important part of it. You would like to rent the 1-bedroom unit where you're not living, most importantly, but you're looking to get coverage with this application for your own unit as well. And those are the only units on the property, the only ones utilizing these 4 parking spots.
Correct.
But the property would remain your primary residence.
Yes.
Okay, I think we have a sense of what this is, and I guess the question is, for Mary, is if both bedrooms are rented out and the applicant is not on site, then that is when the attendant parking is required? Is that the intention?
Well, without stacked parking, there really isn't an attendant. I mean, I'm thinking functionally and factually, we don't want anybody to be pinned in. The specifics of this is these 2 units are in most close proximity. I
Yeah.
imagine that you could knock on the other door and ask somebody to help you. This has been going on for months. Each one of these is a different story.
Right.
That we're really not well equipped to manage right now. So we're doing the best we can.
Okay. Well, sounds like we'll have a few things to discuss in deliberative. I think at this point, I will close the application. Unless there's any other questions from staff or the applicant or board. Okay. Thank you, Colleen. We will probably deliberate on this at the end of the meeting.
Is there anything different that I talked about that other than Mary had motioned?
No, it's pretty
I
much,
guess I'm asking. I don't know if this matters, but there's overnight parking on the street.
right, we understand, but the obligation is to provide parking on site for these
Well,
kinds of
we
things.
have 4,
Right,
and I have all my friends here, so if I needed an attendant, I would but they're right on top of each other in here, and I definitely could have, if it gets approved for that, to have an attendant, then I would have that a minute away. It's the next door over and across the street
okay,
that my friends have. It can be taken care of.
okay,
The only time I got pinned in is when the US Post Office decided to park their car there. And he went delivering all the mail and came back a couple hours later. It wasn't his regular route, but I appreciate all your time. Thank you, everyone.
okay. Thank you. We'll close the public hearing. And now 83 Central Avenue. And I see Andrea is here. Is anybody else here to speak on this application for 83 Central Avenue? Scott, you're muted.
Anyone wants to speak to this application, raise your hand now.
Okay, Andrea, will you swear to tell the truth and whole truth under pain and penalty of perjury?
Actually, Brad, this is Giovanna Yaranga, Andrea.
Hi, Giovanna.
I'm sorry, she is in a meeting because her work is like, they go by Central Time.
Okay.
She's unable, she might be able to join us towards the end.
Okay.
Yes.
So Giovanna, do you swear to tell the truth and whole truth under pain and penalty of perjury?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so the staff report indicates that with the changes that Andrea made, that it exceeds the lot coverage on this one.
Okay.
Were you aware of that?
Yeah, she has shared everything with me, but there's no changes that she has made. She just acquired this property in January of this year. And there hasn't been change, and she's not asking for any additional lot coverage. It's just the existing driveway that is there that allows 2 cars to park side by side with one other behind it.
I have a question, Brad. Because we have talked about this one twice now, and I just, for point of clarification, when I looked through the documents, has anything changed in the application since we continued the hearing last time? It sounds like this is kind of the same discussion that we had last time.
I thought Mary had looked at this.
If I may interject, Caitlin and Brad, at the last hearing, Brad asked me to work with the applicant to try to find a solution. One of the uploaded documents reflects my efforts at trying to solve the lot coverage question, and I was unable to do that in several attempts at trying to pare down lot coverage. It's through no fault of this current owner that the properties on Proctor Place have been redeveloped. However, gravel's been spread on that access drive, and we are far exceeding allowable coverage now. Alteration to the driveway could not be considered without addressing lot coverage. And there's an assertion of an encroachment into a required setback that could not be approved. So I will tell you, I made honest efforts here and was unable to resolve the problem.
And did the development on the Proctor Place properties, they put gravel down that wasn't there before?
That's correct.
And was that part of their?
I won't say they, I will say between that period of time when the Proctor Place properties were sold, there was a small area where cars were pulling into a parking area on the west end. Once Proctor Place 2 properties were redeveloped, there was gravel spread on that westerly tail of 83 Central Avenue. There are no permits for that, and unfortunately that piece of land belongs to 83 Central Avenue. And so we have, we're waiting for a DRB decision here to see what the next steps will be.
If I may.
Yeah,
Mayor,
go ahead, Giovanna.
thank you. I have spoken to the previous owner, and he has related that that easement was in place there so that his parents were able to build the double wide to the max that they could, with a driveway that was wide enough for 2 cars side by side. That easement had not, didn't have any gravel there, and it was just an entrance so that the people could go into their properties on Proctor. So at some point, and the previous owner mentioned this, that he wasn't aware because his mother lived there until she passed, basically. And so at some point, he believes, without any asking or permission or anything, they put gravel there. So the assumption at this point is that Proctor, the owners of Proctor, they put the gravel so that it was easier for them to go to their property, to their homes. We also, and I say we because I've been helping my daughter doing some of the work around. The ramp that was there was very disgusting, and the foul smell from the multiple cats that at some point lived had rotted some of the ramp, and the smell was just, no matter how much we put bleach and everything. So we ended up cutting down and taking that ramp. And what we have discovered is that the driveway is actually 18 feet long, and it gets confusing, but it is not part of the, so the driveway is not part of the slab that is under the double wide there. So I think originally when the ramp was there and Andrea was trying to measure everything, that's when it got confusing, because it looked like that slab was part of the driveway and it wasn't. So she's not looking to add any more lot coverage. As a matter of fact, she is hoping to landscape the front and to make it, more appealing and cleaner. I'm just gonna say this is a young a young girl in Burlington. We, as you know, the property values in Burlington are through the roof. Young people, we cannot retain our young people here to stay in Burlington because rents are through the roof. When this opportunity came, Andrea jumped at it. She bought this place for $215,000. She's been doing a lot of work with the help
Giovanna,
of myself and her
I
family.
think the issue is that the change of use, adding the B&B aspect to it, is what raises some of these issues.
Right, I understand that, but she's not looking to change anything in the driveway. And I think that was the original issue. The driveway can easily accommodate 2 cars parked in tandem and 1 car next to it. She would not need to add any more, even gravel or anything to extend that parking. It's just as it is. And now if zoning or the city has an issue with the gravel that was put in the back on Proctor Place, then we certainly can work on that and remove that gravel from there, or add soil and grass so that people can just, drive through to get to their properties. But she's not looking into adding lot coverage.
So Mary, the site plan that's in the application right now is one that you worked with the applicant to generate?
There are 3 there. One is the last approved one from 1991.
Yeah.
One is a site plan that was submitted by the applicant. And the third one clearly says it's the staff attempt at trying to resolve the coverage and doing various coverage calculations, even going so far as considering tire tracks on the easement area and or removing the shed, and the lot is still over coverage.
Could we pull up that one with the lot coverage calculations just to look at? So Mary, they have to be at 35%.
35% for base coverage. You're allowed an additional 10% for open amenities like walkways, decks, patios, and open porches.
Okay.
So my annotations here will show At the very top, I have a gravel right-of-way illustrated, 783 square feet. That reflects the extent of that access driveway in 2004. Still places the lot over coverage. Then I tried the yellow highlighter is what if we only did 2 tire tracks that would extend as far as the easterlymost house on Proctor Place. And that calculation is there as well. For the configuration of the driveway, I drew it as dimensional standards for one set of tandem parking. That's on the left-hand side, and a single parking space for the room rental. I tried to minimize coverage as much as was allowable under the ordinance and the provisions under the standards that apply. Then I considered removing even the extreme measure of what if we took the shed out and we're still over lot coverage.
Was the site plan, the approved site plan that was in here, was that over lot coverage?
That was exactly at 35. It was like 34.89 or
Because
something.
the extension to Proctor Place wasn't gravel.
Was
at that
not
time.
included. No,
And that's what pushed it over.
very much so. And before Proctor Place was developed, all the parking was at the west side. It was only when the mobile home was removed and a home was built on the east side that there was access that then extended all the way to the east side of that tail end of the lot. So the method of parking and the parking access expanded as those properties were developed, and there are no permits. And today, as I went by, there was a car parking on the grass. That easement was only for access, not for parking.
Right, we saw that, that car was parked there and they're not supposed to be parked.
I did replicate the setback from the property line that was approved in 1991. That was a 3-foot setback on the south end of the parking area. So I tried to retain the nonconformity that had been approved in 91 and only illustrate the 3 parking spaces that are required.
Sorry, Mary, could the applicant take out all of the gravel from that west end?
Well, that easement is a private easement for access, not for parking.
But access to where? Could it be shorter? Like, what does it access? Is there?
There are 2 driveways there now. There did not used to be 2 driveways.
So Jeff, if you see that easement that is highlighted in yellow,
Yeah.
to the left of that, there are 2 properties side by side that belong to the same owner.
Yeah.
And so one is a rental unit, I believe, and in the other one, the owner's mother lives there. And so when they come in from the back, from Proctor Place, they come in and one turns like right away. You can see the little yellow one towards the left. That is one driveway to that first house. And then the one that continues to the back goes into this other driveway for the second property.
Giovanni, have you or Andrea spoken to them about their driveway at all?
We did not speak anything regarding the gravel because we were completely unaware that at some point, like Mary said, the gravel had been put without a permit, without anybody knowing.
Yeah.
So I guess the question is, could the gravel be removed if we talk to the owners, to Proctor Place owners, and address this issue with them, and still they have the easement, but without the gravel there?
Well, they can't. The implication is they would not be able to use it without being able to drive on it. and to drive on it, they need gravel.
Without the gravel there, they could not drive
Maybe
in.
there could be less gravel, but something, you know, I think Mary was saying that it could be tire tracks, so they could do less gravel. There's ways to, how much over the lot coverage were they, Mary?
Not much.
45.45% before removing bonus items and the shed. I can't see, my screen is cutting off the bottom of that plan.
It looked
So
like that
not
got you
much.
down to 36.7.
Yes. There it is,
As opposed to 35. Right,
35 for base coverage.
so it's 1.7% of, what's the lot size, 7,000 square feet? Right,
Correct.
okay.
And
If the shed is removed, is there ability to remove pavement or tarmac below that as well, down towards the parking spaces, or does that eliminate some of those parking spaces?
what I have drawn is the minimal amount allowed for the size of parking spaces for a set of tandem and for a single parking space.
I will note for the record that the 1.7% is 119 square feet. And the shed is 120 square feet.
So
But that's after. taking
That's
it out of-
after removing the shed.
He's already removed it.
Oh, you've already taken it off.
Yes.
Okay,
And of course, the applicant would have to agree to that.
yeah.
Then you'd have to start cutting down the main structure.
The driveway can't be smaller, as you said.
As I've imagined it here, those are the minimum requirements for a parking space.
But the amount of gravel on the other end could be lessened. That would be the only.
Can you bring up the approved site plan? Because I'm confused how we can't get to the previous approved site plan. At least I'm like, are there measurement issues? Because I thought the approved site plan had 3 parking spots, had the shed.
But the 1991 permit, Caitlin, did not include any of the coverage on the west side of the lot. It was just a partial site plan, did not include the Proctor Place connection.
Would that mean if they separated out that part of the lot, just hypothetically, sold it to someone who might have an interest in it, that they would then meet the lot coverage for their parcel?
a smaller lot.
Smaller lot, it increases the percentage of lot coverage.
I had that same thought, Jeff. You know, sure, it's a smaller lot, but what they've been conveying is almost entirely lot coverage.
Yeah.
Would you be able to, the access to, is it, I'm not sure what the Proctor Place house closest to this property is, but it looks like that turns into a driveway there. If there was no access to that driveway and they just parked in front of the house, would you be able to expand green space a bit more?
I think.
I'm looking at the staff report. Yeah.
We don't have we don't have anybody here who's representing those houses on Proctor Place.
Yeah.
And so anything that was going to happen with them would have to happen with their awareness, I think.
Mary.
Yeah, absolutely. Not just with their awareness.
Yeah.
Consent.
The other question I have is, so we have the approved site plan that shows a driveway that's actually bigger than the current one. It has the shed, but it doesn't include any of the rest. Like, if the assumption were that the rest of the lot was open, could we do, like, because this basically, the problem is this doesn't actually have a lot coverage calculation on it, but these are all approved dimensions. If we operated under the assumption the rest of the lot that's not shown is open, can we calculate the lot coverage here? And like, that's actually the standard we should be going in. It just seems like there's this impossible position that doesn't make sense to me when there is an approved site plan for the primary part.
an important omission from this 1991 plan. But as I stated, and you can see from the ortho photographs, there wasn't that much coverage on that easement area when the parking was all located on the west side of Proctor Place. There was a small parking area that served both dwellings.
Looks, Caitlin, like the parking area indicated on this site plan is also smaller, so it's only 25 by 20. Mary's drawing it out to 36 to accommodate the tandem that they've asked for.
Correct.
So it seems that this easement would in some ways more than allow the residents of Proctor Place to have the gravel, that they have this easement, but it is the property of the Central Ave house. And I don't want, I understand the need for gravel, but would we also be saying then that the owner of the Central Ave house has to not just honor the easement, but not enhance, but give some sort of, ease for the people to use the easement to get to their house. And I think that's what we're saying if we are saying that we are going to include some sort of gravel on the west end, be it the yellow stripes or whatever.
I think the problem is the easement is really a property rights issue, and it's between these two owners to work out what access means under the terms of the easement.
I see.
Right now, it looks like one of the users, or maybe the prior owner, expanded the easement use with the additional gravel. But unfortunately, Mary's calculation is even if you took it down to just those tire tracks, it still doesn't get them there for lot coverage.
If I may, I just have a question.
Yeah.
If Andrea is not looking to change anything, to add more,
If she's not adding a bed and breakfast, there are no issues.
Right.
like if she's not adding more parking for the purpose of the
No, if she's not adding a bed and breakfast, there's no issues. If she wants to add a bed and breakfast, that's where the issues come.
okay, even though the parking already is there,
It's a change of requirements. It does seem that things have happened that maybe were out of her control and maybe should have been in their control, but we're not sure where the resolution lies at the moment. Mary,
yeah, I understand.
you did the tire track calculation. Is that part of this?
I did it. I used Google Maps and did the measurement on the scale from Google Maps, providing them just the most modest of access to the driveways that were established on Proctor Place. I'm sorry if it looks like scratching on a napkin. It went through several iterations trying to pare down the lot coverage.
And what was the lot coverage before you? I was trying to find the tire track change. What was that reduction?
It's on the top of the screen. If you tilt your head sideways, I have two
tire track option.
Tire tracks, 288 square feet.
Instead of 780.
But what was the savings by going to the tire track option?
You mean on the lot coverage percentage?
Even the square footage.
Well, using that small gravel right of way that was illustrated in 2004, and I outlined that on Google Maps and then developed an area for it. So the small gravel right of way that was illustrated then was 783 square feet.
So it looks down here when I'm looking at these calculations, it's like 36.7.
Yeah.
Well, we have some other issues to talk about with this application too, that were included in the revised staff report.
Yeah, that it's being rented as a whole house, not as owner occupied.
That's correct.
Do you want to address that, Giovanna?
Yes, so I read that staff report, Mary, and there are two things that are inaccurate. One, this is Andrea's permanent residency. This is where she lives. But because of work, she travels a lot. She's a salesperson and she travels a lot. And this is one of the reasons why she wanted to do the Airbnb. Because sometimes she's not there. And like I said, she just acquired this home. She's just trying to make ends meet by having this Airbnb. She started this, but when it was brought up to her attention that you needed a permit, she applied for the permit immediately. And then I think after the first meeting that was brought up that she couldn't do this, she stopped, she paused all reservations. And I don't know, Mary, where you said that that she has bookings into next year, because she doesn't. All reservations, there were a handful on the weekends, and she has paused. She has not been receiving any reservations until this, get approved.
Mary, were you just looking at the calendar availability on that for determining?
Yes, our code enforcement officer brought it to my attention, as well as a city councilor.
Well, I can have her send you a screenshot of her calendar, because she doesn't have any reservations.
But the house is being advertised as an entire house rental.
Well, that is how she listed it at first, and then she paused it, and she hasn't done anything with it.
So it's back to so this is really, the application is for a 1-bedroom
Right.
B&B, right?
Right.
Okay. So there's two ways to go on this thing, it seems. One is that you and Andrea can talk to the neighbors, even though it sounds like there's not a lot of hope, but see if there is any way for them to meet you halfway and seriously reduce the amount of gravel there. The other way is we can just proceed with this application and discuss it at deliberative, even though it sounds like there's not much we can do with the information we have right now because it doesn't comply. That makes sense, Giovanna?
It makes sense, yes.
But
we would like to, I think she would definitely like to speak with a neighbor and try to figure out a way that it can work out.
Okay. I think
the challenge is, I don't think even if she were to reduce it.
Well, to some extent, it's a question.
I don't want to give false hope here.
Right, but I don't really have a clear picture of how these other two houses access their property and if they're willing to meet them halfway on this thing or not.
But
I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like I would like to just make a decision on this one.
Yeah, if we deny it, she could come back with a different application if she can resolve all those issues. But we've heard it 3 times now and we don't have a path to approval. So I'm kind of with Caitlin.
Okay. Yeah. So Giovanni, I think the consensus is that we will deliberate on this tonight and proceed that way, but it doesn't mean that you can't still take some action to see if there's a way to resolve this if it doesn't get approved.
I understand.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks for your efforts on this. Okay, we will close the public hearing then. And that is the last B and B of the night.
Brad, before, so I need to leave at 6:30. So I was wondering if we wanted to do deliberative separately, if you feel like it would be valuable to include me. Or if there are certain ones on the agenda that you want to discuss first.
I don't have any sense of it. I would just go in order and just take it as it comes. Jeff is recused on one item, which was a
You approved that
consent.
already, though. That was
Yeah, consent.
Brad,
So,
we've closed the total public hearing on all items, just FYI.
yes.
Okay.
So we're going to close the meeting and the meeting at this point. We'll go into
Recording
deliberate-
stopped.
So on 83 Central Ave, which is ZP 22-50, I move that we deny the application and adopt staff's findings and conclusions.
Second.
Caitlin seconds. Any discussion? All in favor?
4, 5, 6, 6, 7.
Were you positive too, AJ?
Yeah, I said aye.
Okay. Yeah. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes. 7. Okay.
So 69 Orchard Terrace, which is ZP 22-217. I move that we deny the application because the applicant is not in a position to provide written assurance that an attendant will be present at all times the stacked parking is in use. And I guess ask staff to update the findings consistent with that.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
What was the count on that? Was it?
Recording
The
stopped.
thing is,
We're on ZP 22-184 13 Lakeview Terrace. That's the right one. I move that we accept staff recommendations and approve the application.
there a second? I see Chase. Okay. Any discussion? Do people not want to give the benefit? Okay, anyways, all in favor of the application of the motion? So we get 3, all opposed? AJ,
Oh, I'm in.
you're opposed?
Yes.
Okay, so motion fails.
All right, well, with that, I'm gonna leave, so good luck.
Okay, so there.
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
On ZP 21-184, which is 13 Lakeview Terrace, I move that we deny the application because the site does not provide adequate parking for the requested change in use, and ask that staff update findings to conform to that motion.
Second on that,
I'll second that, yeah.
Brooks. Is there anything that you need to add to combat the staff report that says they're reducing the non-compliance? Does that need to be addressed in your motion? I'm asking really.
I don't think so. I think we're saying the change in use to the bed and breakfast requires 3 or 4 parking spaces. And in our view, the prior non-conformity is not at issue because of that change in use.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Oh, look at that, we got it. All opposed? Okay, so it's 5-1.
Recording stopped.
On 22,
Recording in progress.
I move that we approve the application and adapt staff's findings and recommendations.
For a second. Okay, Leo, seconds. All in favor? Oh. 1, 2, 3, 4. Opposed? 2. Brooks, and so it's 4-2.
Recording stopped.